Hello and welcome to my channel, iWinterlose Gaming. In today's video, we'll not only take a look at Mavuika's constellations, but also at her investment priority, ranging all the way from free-to-play advice to mega whale advice. Frankly speaking, polling for Mavuika and her upgrades is quite intimidating, with all of the options available. So hopefully this video will help answer some questions like should I pull for her weapon, constellations, or Citlali. Happy New Year's everyone! Before we continue, remember to spend responsibly. Increased power levels in a video game isn't worth making poor financial decisions, or for those of you with lots of Primo Gems saved or the disposable income, then this is the video for you. This video was filmed on the early access server and is not indicative of the final product. There may be some changes on release, so be sure to check the comments down below to see if there are any. Throughout this video, I'll be using this team as the baseline. Please note that your mileage will vary depending on Mavuika's teammates. Also, I'll be sticking with the sweatless spin to win combo. There is a sweaty combo which I'll make a video on after this video, which actually improves Mavuika's damage with Citlali, so stay tuned for that. Now the first question is her signature weapon worth it? I compared 3 weapons here. Her signature weapon, a 1000 Blazing Suns, the Wolf's Gravestone, and the Earth Shaker. Sadly, the media server is missing some of her better free-to-play friendly options, which is why I chose the Wolf's Gravestone without its buffs up. Anyway, as we can see, here are the results, and they line up pretty well with my calculations as well. The Wolf's Gravestone is performing at about 82% of her signature weapon, which is actually quite similar to how well the free-to-play friendly R5 Mailed Flower will perform, and as well as many other claymores. But if your best option is something like the Earth Shaker, well, it's only at 72.9% of her signature weapon, which is where the upgrade to her signature weapon is much more worth it. The next question is, how is Citlali in comparison to Farina? In this specific comparison, I've added up the first 8 instances of charged attacks, because with Vape, you'll be able to Vape more with the standard charge attack rotation. Although again, stay tuned because I've got a wicked combo for those sweaty gamers to get 3 additional melts as well. Anyway, even without this sweaty combo, adding Melt and Citlali's buffs leads to a very significant 27.5% estimated gain over this full rotation after normalizing a couple variables. Overall, getting Citlali is one of the largest upgrades you can get for Mavuika. Next, let's take a look at her constellations, which unfortunately I did make a mistake, but we'll get to that in a bit. Constellation 1 does a lot for Mavuika, first increasing her Night Soul point limit to 120, which increases the uptime for her elemental skill. As we can see, we went from 6 orbital strikes over 12 seconds to 9 orbital strikes over 18 seconds. The increased Night Soul points along with 25% more efficient fighting spirit drastically increased the amount of fighting spirit generated from her skill alone from 80 to 150, making her much more self-sufficient for Night Soul points generation. This part of her Constellation 1 is a major upgrade with teams that have no other Natlan characters, although it's not as big of a deal for teams that do have at least one other Natlan character, which to be fair for Mavuika, most of her teams will have one other Natlan character. Her Constellation 1 also improves her exploration capabilities, as she's able to stay on her bike without dashing for around 14.5 seconds, thus allowing her to, without dashing, have nearly 100% uptime on her bike even outside of Natlan. As for the damage increase, we're seeing a modest improvement of 9.2% increase thanks to the 40% attack that our Constellation 1 also provides. As we can see, Constellation 1 provides a ton of quality of life for Mavuika and is a stellar constellation. Up next we have Mavuika's Constellation 2, which enhances both her Ring of Searing Radiance and her motorcycle's basic and charged attacks. Starting off with her Ring of Searing Radiance, which now shreds 20% defense for nearby enemies. Now Milani is doing around 12.1% more damage on the first chomp thanks to the ring's defense shred. And if we look at how much of an improvement this was to her motorcycle mode, well, this is where I made that mistake that I mentioned earlier, and unfortunately I forgot to swap Shilinen back to the instructor set since I swapped her over to the Cinder City set for the Milani test. But thankfully, with the power of math, we are easily able to normalize the earlier damage numbers to get a fairly accurate number for the improvement Constellation 2 provides Mavuika, which ends up being a whopping 31.1% improvement to her damage. It is important to note that the defense shred from her ring does not apply during her motorcycle mode, but despite that, these huge flat multiplier increases just make her do a ton more damage. Not only that, but at Constellation 2, even without her burst, her motorcycle attacks are much stronger as well. Next up we have her Constellation 3, which simply increases her burst level by 3, leading to a modest but respectable 12.8% gain to Mavuika's damage. Constellation 4 improves her passive to 50%, and also it no longer decays, providing herself a very small boost to her own damage but also improving her supporting capabilities. Constellation 5 just adds 3 levels to her skill, which further improves her damage, and well, here comes Constellation 6.
Humanity never conceals its desire to control the heavens. I'm no exception.
Firstly, Constellation 6 adds an additional attack to her ring. However, this additional attack does not apply Pyro. The second part of her Constellation 6 activates her ring even during her motorcycle mode. This means that now the defense shred from her Constellation 2 is active during her burst, and finally, there's an extra orbital strike when she's on her bike that also doesn't apply Pyro. Admittingly, this isn't the craziest Constellation 6 we've seen, but it's still a very solid constellation. Including the orbital strike as well as the defense shred from Constellation 2, now Mavuika is doing about 19.2% more damage in comparison to a Constellation 5 Mavuika. Finally, we can upgrade her weapon to Refinement 5. Where she's now doing around 2.5 times the damage of a Constellation 0 Mavuika. As we can see, and as expected, Mavuika's constellations and weapon refinements provide a massive boost to her already high power level. Now, I also did the same thing for Citlali, with Citlali's Constellation 1 providing a very modest 3.3% gain. This is very low because I started activating Citlali's constellations after Mavuika is already at Constellation 6 Refinement 5, which dilutes the flat damage that Citlali's Constellation 1 provides. However, Citlali's Constellation 2 goes crazy here since my Mavuika was on an attack percent timepiece, and this thing adds 250 elemental mastery and increases resistance shred by 20%. Because of all this, we can see a comical 46% increase to Mavuika's damage. Finally, the next major upgrade for Citlali's supporting capabilities is at Constellation 6, where she provides 60% pyro damage, and well, our 5 million hit point Gopher friend can't even survive a single charged attack. So of course, I took this opportunity to max out everyone on this team, including C6R5 Shilinen and C6R5 Citlali. Let's see how insane Mavuika is with the power of a Bitcoin billionaire. $5.33 million damage with just the initial nuke, no food, box only, final destination. And what's crazy is that I can even shorten this rotation by skipping Mavuika's skill and only using Citlali's skill. This is definitely going to be a whale speedrunner's favorite new toy. But let's push this even further beyond to the final frontier. One last nuke showcase against the Hat. 9,433,737 damage. We've almost reached the damage cap on the media server, which is missing whale artifacts as well as crowns. What has Genshin Impact become? Alright, so let's provide a summary and breakdown of the information in this video. First of all, in my opinion, the most valuable addition you can add to Mavuika is going to be Citlali. Citlali is a significant upgrade due to reasonably consistent melts and her very substantial buffs. Not only that, but Citlali can obviously be used outside of Mavuika teams as well. Then the next most valuable upgrade is likely Mavuika's weapon, especially if you don't have the mailed flower or better. Keep in mind though that there is a 25% chance for you to not get Citlali's or Mavuika's weapon, but there is a 75% chance for you to get one or the other. Getting Citlali's weapon also leads to a small improvement, or even a very small damage loss depending on your artifacts, but it's still much better than the Thrilling Tales due to the much thicker shield, improved Citlali's damage, as well as less uptime issues. So if you're feeling a little risky, this is one of the better weapon banners that we've had. After that though, if you want to improve Mavuika both in terms of her quality of life and damage, Mavuika's Constellation 1 provides a lot of quality of life for exploration and Night Soul points regeneration, as well as a modest damage boost. Frankly, if you're risk averse and you also value exploration a lot, then Mavuika's Constellation 1 is worth going for even over the signature weapon, especially as I mentioned if you're risk averse. And of course, like most modern constellations, Mavuika's Constellation 2 is her big one and catapults her damage significantly. Funnily, you could also go for Citlali's Constellation 2, as her Constellation 2 provides similar buffs to Mavuika's damage as Mavuika's own Constellation 2, so it's hard to go wrong with that choice either. There's the added benefit of Citlali being able to support other teams besides Mavuika as well, although let's be real, the main teams that benefit from Citlali's Constellation 2 are melt teams, which, well, Mavuika happens to be the primary choice for that. As for you whales out there, well, C6R5 Mavuika is certain to shatter some records. So if you like what you see and you bought a bunch of crypto back in the day, then this might be the choice for you. As for me, I personally plan to C6R5 both Mavuika and Citlali because I'm a dirty whale. Again, remember to spend responsibly, and hopefully this video helped you decide what to invest into for your Mavuika teams. As always, I appreciate every single one of you. This is I Went to Lose, signing out.